Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing fantastic. I came to the park to walk and then it immediately started raining, so I thought I'll just make the video that I planned on making later right now and give this little shower some time to blow over. The sun's out and it's raining, so here in the South they call that the devil beating his wife. Well, there's so many sayings, Southern sayings. I could make a whole book just about Southern sayings, and they come out of my mouth instinctual. I don't even think about them. People that aren't from around here are probably like, what in the world? But that's just how we were raised. So the video that I wanted to make today just happened because I ended up watching something last night that I had been rejecting the idea of, because it was something that someone's trying to make a narrative about with me. They're trying to make this fit because they are grasping at straws, people. I mean, it's ridiculous. They have to make up things to try and make me look bad, or so a judge can find me guilty of something unsavory, or to justify their ill intent and actions towards me. It's so much easier to sleep at night when you try to call someone a prostitute, or you call them blasphemous or mentally ill, whatever it may be, abusive, whatever it may be. They will try to make that narrative fit to make me look bad, to make them feel better, to somehow make it fit so that they have a clean conscience, and that they're not doing anything wrong. It's all me, right? So in in the recent past, because I have spoken about twin flames before, it's something in the spiritual community that some people talk about. Some people believe it. Some people kind of look at it as a myth. Some people, it's just for entertainment purposes only. So it doesn't have to, it's not something that you live your life by. It could be something that you hope for, you wish for, a crush you have on someone. But basically, if you're in the spiritual community, a twin flame means that you share the same soul with someone, that you just usually age gap. It's not always male female, but as I believe we all embody masculine and feminine energy, not everyone has a twin flame. Not everyone will meet their twin flame. I definitely don't. Now, before I thought I met my twin flame, I definitely thought it was something romantic. Now, they do describe it as a runner-chaser dynamic, and it can be something romantic, but most often it is soul-wrenching, because it's very rare that someone that you consider your twin flame you would come into harmonious union. It is a runner-chaser, like this person's wanting the union and this person doesn't, and then that person does, and then this person doesn't. It's very rarely something that comes together and fits like a puzzle. I believe it now that I think I've met my twin flame. I now believe it as, your counterpart in a battle of some sort that you're involved in your course of life. It's someone that can assist you. You can assist each other. I don't believe it to be romantic at all. It can be, but I don't believe it now as far as my situation. I don't believe it to be romantic at all. I'm not willing to live my life in that dynamic, the runner-chaser thing. I believe in soulmates, and I believe I have a soulmate. I believe you can have several soulmates. I don't believe that I've ever been in a romantic union with a soulmate yet. I believe I've been in love, but I believe they've all been karmic situations. So that means they were there to teach me a lesson. And I repeated the lesson with my marriage. I've learned the lesson. I'm sure I'll have some more karmic lessons. I hope not. I hope that now I've healed enough to know my worth, and that I don't need to involve myself with karmic people in order to learn lessons now, but definitely more lessons to learn in life. So anyway, one of the narratives that has been presented to me telling me that I need to admit it, which I refuse because it's absolutely not true, is that I have labeled someone who I went on one date with a twin flame. And my ex-husband, okay, so bring you to the start of that just real quick. I'm going to make it quick. My son had a baseball coach who his wife passed away. And I felt, empathy for this person, and it was very sudden and shocking. So I did worry about them. They had 2 children they were left to raise alone. And out of nowhere, my ex-husband called me and was laughing and making fun of this person because they randomly showed up at a party that he was at with someone who didn't speak English. And he thought it was ridiculous, and he was making fun of him, talking about this person is with someone that doesn't speak English, ha ha ha. And because my ex-husband has been so cruel and a tyrant to me, I immediately feel sorry or have empathy for the other person that he is making fun of, because I have been in their shoes. So as to where I had wanted to reach out to this person and just check on them and see if they're okay. We were not friends before. I just felt bad for the situation that they ended up in. So I had wanted to reach out, but this conversation where he was making fun of him made me want to immediately reach out and not only check on him because his wife passed, but check on him because he's hanging out with people that obviously don't have his best interest at heart, and he needed to. I didn't tell him. Eventually I told him what my ex-husband had said about him, but I didn't tell him right away. I just checked on him, sent him a message. We spoke for a little while. We ended up meeting up, and I would call it a date only because I don't date. I don't date, so it was probably the closest thing that I had to a date in years. So I'm calling it that because we hung out. What did we do? We ate. We had a beer. This was before I stopped drinking. It's probably been 2 years now since this date, quote unquote date, happened. But anyway, it was not a love match at all. I immediately friend zoned him. We were not compatible. I did try to help him as a friend as far as things that have helped me, things that I'm talking about on this channel, and I definitely tried to steer him clear of my ex-husband and considering him a friend, but still did not at that point tell him what had been said about him. He did fully tell me how he got into a relationship with this woman that didn't speak English, and I told him, that my ex-husband had told me about that, but I didn't tell him that he was making fun of me, and that was the content of the story. But I did tell him that I knew he was dating someone that didn't speak English, and so we talked about that. He was hell-bent on getting in a relationship, which was a red flag to me. Not only, was trying to get into a relationship with me, but he, was a recent widow, so I didn't think it was a good time for him to jump all into anything. But he was jumping from girl to girl on the dating apps, and I guess that in another way I was like, well, he's free. He's been married since high school almost, so he'd been with someone for like 20 years, and so he had a newfound freedom. So anyway, friend zoned him, didn't consider him a romantic interest at all. And then out of nowhere, whenever my uncle started to be mean to me, this person who had helped me move into my uncle's, took one truckload, and then got a call from a girl and immediately disappeared on me. But I was telling him how my family had been mean and how I had cut most of them off, and now my uncle was doing some odd things. And he told me that it made him want to hear the other side of the story. Now, this is someone who I thought was my friend, and I had reached out to them only because my ex-husband had been cruel behind his back. But now he was telling me that he wanted to hear my ex-husband's side of the story. Like, he didn't believe me, and that my ex was a narcissist, and he didn't believe all of the cruel things that had been done to me. And I said, that's like telling someone that had been raped that you want to talk to their rapist. You know, I had been abused by these people, and he's telling me he would like to hear their side of the story. Like, I was just bold-faced lying to him. I was telling him as a friend things that I had been through, and he was telling me that he would like to talk to the other people, which made me believe he had already talked to the other people. But that's the time that I took it upon myself to tell him what my ex-husband had said about him, and how he when he knew that I was hanging out with him, my ex-husband had said that he would make fun of me so bad if I dated this person. And so I told him that too, and he just laughed it off. And I guess he still considered my ex-husband a friend and thought that I was just bashing them for the fun of it, and that I wasn't telling the truth. But I was. But I gave him what he needed. I gave him the truth, nothing but the truth, and he was on his own after that. But we were friends, you know. And then in the midst of this custody battle, it surfaced that I needed to admit that I was calling this person my twin flame. I've made videos, which are now private, about who I thought my twin flame was, and I named him. So obviously they don't have all of the videos, because they wouldn't be able to claim this if they did. I never ever called that person my twin flame. I named my twin flame. It was a completely different person, right? So anyway, they accused me of calling that person my twin flame. They said that basically I was stalking him and his new girlfriend from an unknown number and a TikTok account, which I haven't had a TikTok account in years. The only way that I even have one now is because my son had a TikTok channel, and he created a new TikTok channel. And this has been very recently. This was way after they said that I was using TikTok to harass this person and his new girlfriend. But I only had one friend on that TikTok account that my son had created for me, and it is not even my son. So, and I definitely don't use it to communicate with anyone. I've never sent any messages from it. Yeah, I just look at this person who I'm friends with and their posts from time to time when I get notifications. But anyway, so they said that I was from an unknown number texting him, his girlfriend, harassing him, calling this person my twin flame, and that like we were destined to be together and all this stuff. And then they accused me of being part of the twin flame universe. I had never heard of the twin flame universe ever in my life. Clueless on this. And then people started putting on my post that I was an occult, or I was a cult. I'm not sure what they meant. Deleted it, moved on, whatever. And then because I don't have much money, but I do have a laptop, and I would watch, Netflix. Or actually, I started with Hulu, and I watched like pretty much everything on there. I've had Apple TV. I watched pretty much everything on there. I would go from streaming service one at a time, either get a free trial, or I would pay for 1 month and watch as much as I could, and then I would move on to something else, Amazon Prime, whatever. I finally came to Netflix, and I saw this documentary called Twin Flame Universe, and I was like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Must be that. And I was like, I'm not gonna watch it, because I want to be truthful and honest when I say I have no idea what that is. And last night I watched it. Okay, it has been months since I have been asked that question, and I have avoided it. And then I thought, I've watched pretty much everything on here, my subscription's almost up, I'm just gonna go ahead and watch it. I've watched other shows on cults, the dancing cult, how there was a church that took advantage of these TikTok dancers and basically drew them in, and they were taking 50-75% of their income and calling it tithing, which also springboarded into my tithing video. Lots of people take advantage, stuff like that. They look at people in vulnerable situations. They are looking to not be alone. They're looking for support in one way or another. They don't have any direction at that moment in their life. They will separate them from their family if they're not already separated, and then they will exploit them, have them work for them, do whatever. They will take advantage and manipulate them, brainwash them. That's a cult, right? So I knew that this, before I watched it, that someone had obviously, you can take anything and make it a cult, right? As long as you have the people that are willing to follow you and that are willing to put faith in whatever Kool-Aid that you're selling them to drink, you can take advantage of someone and create a cult with anything, So I watched this, right? It was horrifying. It was horrifying because people in the spiritual community, a lot of them probably either they weren't raised religious, or they were done wrong in a church or whatever. Some people turn to it because they want an alternative, or they've heard about it and they're curious. I definitely turned to it when I was praying to God for my life to change, praying for my path and my purpose. And I definitely found it at a time that was instrumental for me as far as making changes that I needed to make to get away from the negative people, places, and things in my life. Pretty much the only thing that I kept around was one friend and my uncle. I had a few acquaintances and definitely cake customers, but I had, before completely isolating myself after my uncle locked me and my child out of the house. And it's funny, they've taken him around my uncle so many times. They want to make it seem like I'm the one that turned him against my uncle, when Colin, in fact, was mad at me for talking to my uncle while we were living there. He got pedophile vibes off of him, and he told me about it. And if I ever just made small talk or talked about something that was going on in the house, Colin would get mad at me for talking to my uncle, because he wanted me to not talk to him at all. Like, he didn't want to talk to him. And if my uncle came around, he would run away. And my uncle would say, "Why is he running?" And I didn't want to go into it and admit to him that Colin didn't want to be around him and that he got creepy vibes. So I would just say, "I don't know." But they blamed me for saying that I told Colin he couldn't talk to my uncle, which is totally not true. Colin didn't want to talk to my uncle. Colin didn't want me to talk to my uncle. But since he locked us out, and my uncle knew at the time I had a restraining order against his dad, and then there was nowhere for Colin to go because his grandmother lived right next door to his dad, so that also involved the restraining order. He locked us both out. He made Colin homeless too. He had no compassion towards this child because he was mad at me, and he wanted to get revenge on me and lock me out without giving me any notice, even though that's what he should have done. And I'm sure he told the judge that he did, that I was served, but I was never served. And then I didn't know about it, so of course I didn't show up to court. And that was the failure to appear warrants that he kept threatening me with if I came back to the house to get any of my stuff. So that's why it's all still there. But they have taken Colin back at least 5 or 6 times around my uncle. Now, it took me all of my stuff, cake business stuff, all of my stuff, all of Colin's stuff. It took me 2.5 days to move all of that stuff in single-handedly, other than the one truckload that my uncle took, right? Or, sorry, not my uncle. The person that they say I'm calling my twin flame, which I'm not. The one truckload that he took. It took me 2.5 days to move everything that we had into my uncle's house. But Colin is saying that they need to take him over there 5 or 6 times to get just his stuff. What? You could have moved all of his stuff out that he had over there in half a day. Because I did it myself. So I know how long and how much there was there. But there was a need to keep taking him to my uncle's house. These are people that my ex had told me repeatedly that he did not have anything to do with. But yet he knows all of these details about his life. Like, he's an atheist, and he's not a Mason. and all of this stuff. He knows all of this for a fact, but then he also swore that he did not associate with them. He didn't even consider his own family his family. His family was not blood, blah, 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 blah. But he has taken my son over there 5 or 6 times. Okay, that's a tangent, but anyway, yeah, he also made my son homeless too. Heartless. So, in this cult documentary, these people were taking advantage of abused people, and if they weren't already abused people, they would put them through this process of called MAP, which basically they put them in this meditated state, and they would implant memories of abuse and try to make them believe that they were abused even if they weren't. They isolated these people and made them pay for their services, this coaching or whatever. I'm a nonconformist, so I would never be part of a cult. I think that's ridiculous to think that I would ever try to conform to someone else's things. My spirituality is very personal to me. I don't want paid for anything that I'm trying to give advice about, much less have people follow me or isolate them from their loved ones or make them think they were abused when they weren't, or exploit their abuse and take advantage of it. So they started by separating these people from their family, telling them that they could channel who their twin flame was, that they knew who their twin flame was before they ever knew. That individual knew who their twin flame was, that they could basically look inside their crystal ball and tell them who their twin flame was, and then they would send people to them and make them think that that was their twin flame, but it had been orchestrated all along because it would be somebody in the group already that they would have contact them and say that they were twin flames, not randomly their twin flame, but someone who was already in the group would contact them, and they would go, "That's your twin flame. We saw it. We channeled this. That is your twin flame. Now you need to do everything you can to be with this person, no matter what, no matter if they're married, no matter if they have kids, no matter what is going on in their life. You need to, at all costs, be with this person because that is God sending you this person, and you need to be grateful and create a harmonious union with that person no matter what, no holds barred, right?" So then they would give them money. They would start GoFundMes within the group and then give that couple money to create a life together. And then they felt indebted to the group for giving money, so they would have to go out and buy household items and get a place together and start living together, and then post nonstop about how they were in harmonious union with this twin flame, even though they were miserable and it didn't feel right at all. It was so forced. Sometimes they would be in abusive relationships with their appointed twin flame, and they would quit their jobs to work for the group. So all of their friends, all of the money that they made was all connected within this organization. So if they didn't go all in, then they basically had nothing because they had isolated themselves from their family, quit their jobs, all of their friends were there. They would have nothing if they quit the group. They had people stalking other people, which is like what they're trying to accuse me of. This one girl had they said her ex-boyfriend was her twin flame and she needed to be with him at all costs, and then he had another girlfriend, and then she kept on telling him that she was his twin flame and they had to be together. This was destiny, and nothing could convince her otherwise. And he got a restraining order, and they kept encouraging her to keep on and violate this restraining order. And he had reported all of this and got her put in jail, and they still wanted her to pursue this so-called twin flame union. So yeah, they feel like they had to make it work, and then they had to in turn coach others to do what they had been taught to do by these leaders. The leaders used words like channeling, twin flame, manifestations, divine masculine, divine feminine, ascension, which they hardly ever mentioned God at first, but then they mentioned ascension all the time. So ascension in their world was becoming closer to the leaders and more like the leaders, because they were eventually presented themselves to be Jesus. The leader did. He wanted to turn it into a religion so that he could make more money and not have to pay taxes, and that he didn't have to pay the workers anymore, that they would be volunteers and working for the organization as a church. And then he started growing his hair out and calling himself Jesus. And then his wife made a video about how she channeled from God that her husband was Jesus and he was the second coming of Christ. Ooh, it went way off the rails. They would say that there's only one divine harmonious union, and it was the perfect union. It had to make it work, whatever it takes. Cults are not illegal, guys. They involve adults, so they don't involve children most of the time, and adults have free will. So a lot of these people would try to call the law officials and try to get them to go get their family member who had been taken advantage of and isolated, and they would tell them there's nothing that we can do, guys, because they're an adult and they did all of this of their own free will. So yeah, the coaches were trained to abuse each other, tell on each other, watch each other constantly, try to get approval of the leaders no matter how they could, because if they didn't, they would be singled out, and the leader would say, fuck appropriate, and telling them to scream at people, harass other members of the group. He would scream liar alarm if anybody said anything that was contradictory to what he was saying or what the group was about, or basically opposing him as the leader. Or he would make them watch documentaries on other cults and then write papers on how he wasn't a cult, trying to convince them that there was no similarities. But he called his insults discipline, and that they needed to be disciplined, and he justified it. And he was a tyrant. If their twin flame was abusive, they had to accept that this was the price to pay for God's harmonious union, and they needed to be more receptive towards their partner, their twin flame, so that they could make it work, because God sets the price and they don't get to determine the price. If that is the price that it takes to be with their twin flame, God has sent them that twin flame, so God has set the price and they must pay the price. So if that person was abusive, they were just supposed to swallow that and be with him and take that responsibility on as their own to make it work with this person, that it wasn't the other person's fault at all. It was that they weren't trying hard enough to accept God's gift. The mirroring that they talked about it's not the mirroring that I talk about. Mirroring was basically called mirroring, but in actuality it was projection. They were projecting things onto these people, like if their twin flame told them, I hate you, or I want to kill myself, or they were doing something that was just mean and abusive. That in turn, the mirroring exercises were the partner of the twin flame was wanted to kill themselves, or they hated themselves, or they were supposed to turn it around on themselves, or whatever that was being said to them, to believe that they felt it about themselves. So if their partner said, I hate you, then they hated themselves. Or if their partner said, I didn't want to be with them, then they were supposed to turn that around and mirror it back onto themselves, like, I'm not worthy of anyone being with me. It was not, it was projection, but it was called mirroring. If you talk bad about the group, then of course they would put you in a blocked group. No one could talk to you. You were shunned. You were ostracized. And at this point, they were all in, so that meant they had nothing left. And then it got real deep. A lot of people started leaving, and they paired most of the people that were still existing in the group with other group members, saying that they had channeled that this was their twin flame. And most of the guys had already left the group, so they they put women together, and they made certain women believe that they were the divine masculine in the group. They didn't believe that homosexuality or bisexuality existed at all. So if you were paired up with a woman and they told you that that was your twin flame, then one of the people in the group, one of the women, had to turn themselves into a guy. A lot of people did gender reassignment surgeries, top surgeries, to fully embody the divine masculine, whether they felt like they were a lesbian or a masculine energy in that lesbian union, but they wouldn't call it a lesbian union because homosexuality didn't exist. You were the divine masculine, and then they would make them choose a male name to go by. It was crazy. And people want to say that I'm a part of that. I was like, what? At first, I could see where somebody might be able to say that because they were using terms that I use, spiritual terms, but they had just taken that stuff and twisted it with these vulnerable people to get them, bait them into this group. And then these people wanted love. So they made them think that, well, we'll find your twin flame. This will be the greatest love of all, the perfect match for you, your God, your kingdom, spouse. This is we are gifted enough to where we know who your twin flame is, even if you don't know who your twin flame is. And these people were vulnerable. They wanted to belong. They wanted friends. They wanted love. They wanted this community, and they would suck them in by using these spiritual terms. And then it got so deep as people were reassigning their gender to be with who they said their twin flame was. Like, what? And then they were building this commune, basically, where they were all going to live together and having this child that they called also part of their twin flame. Their child was part of their twin flame union, and this was going to be the most divine individual. And they were going to have people have babies together, and if they were same sex, then they were going to tell them who their sperm donor was going to be. It got way, way deep. And this thing is still going. It's still going somewhere. I just can't. So I could see at first how, that they might want to parallel that with me. And, but I don't think that's my twin flame that they're trying to make me admit to. I don't know his girlfriend. I don't know her name. I think they put her name in the paper, but I don't know her name. I definitely don't know her number. I don't know how to reach out to her. I never would. I could care less about, I wish them the best. Happy trails to you guys. Leave me out of it. I've never wanted to be with him. I definitely don't want to come in the way of him being with someone else. I tried to tell him about these people, and then he got further engulfed in that, and now they probably want him to come to court and lie, saying that I have harassed and stalked him and his girlfriend, which could not be further from the truth. And I would never be part of this twin flame universe cult. That is ridiculous. I am a loner out here. I don't need that community. I don't need a twin flame. I don't need to feel like I belong to any of that. And it is so sad. It's so sad that they would grasp at straws to try and put me in that box when I'm just out here trying to help people not be manipulated and not end up with people like that. So anyway, that was my video today. I just wanted to touch on that documentary because I finally watched it. I finally saw what they were trying to say I'm a part of, and it couldn't be further from the truth. You could still, whatever you want to say to justify how you feel about me, or justify the hate spewed things that you say about me. Fine, do what you want. You can say that I live in Disneyland, that I'm this, I'm that. I don't care what you say about me, but that was horrifying, and I hope nobody ends up in a cult, much less a spirituality cult. It seems like it was only a matter of time before somebody had used that. People have created their own religions to make cults. So now that people are waking up and they're mentioning spirituality, and they're turning more to that than organized religion, I can see why it's only a matter of time before somebody capitalized on that to suck people into a cult and make money off of them. It makes sense because people are that sick and they're that twisted. But not me. It's not me, guys. Try harder, because it just isn't gonna fit ever. Not with me. That doesn't fit my personality. I'm very spiritual. I stand on my my beliefs. I'm riding with God. This is who I am. This is who I'm always going to be for the rest of my life. But not in a cult. And I didn't ever think that person was my twin flame. So obviously they didn't pay close enough attention to peg that one on me. But nice try. See you later. I love you. God loves you. You're never alone. Bye.